I never thought I'd find myself here, laying bare the shambles of my marriage to a bunch of strangers online. But life has a way of throwing curveballs, doesn't it? My name is Jake, and my relationship with Emily was the kind of fairy tale you read about in books. At least that's what I thought. We met in college, fell in love fast, and married soon after. Life was good. We were happy, or so I believed. However, things started to change around the time Emily got into yoga. She claimed it was about finding balance and inner peace, diving headfirst into that whole wellness culture. I supported her because, truthfully, I was happy to see her take up something she enjoyed. But looking back, I can see where it all began to fall apart. She became obsessed with her yoga instructor, a guy named Kyle. He was young, attractive, and as I later discovered, had a knack for exploiting the emotional vulnerabilities of his students. At first, I didn't think much of it. Emily would come home, glowing and animated, raving about how insightful Kyle was, how healing the practices were. I was glad she was passionate, but there was something unsettling about how she spoke of him. The way she described his trauma-informed approach felt too personal, too intimate. I shrugged it off until a series of little signs began to emerge. There were late nights filled with yoga classes that somehow turned into hours, and a growing number of unexplained absences. I noticed she started dressing differently, wearing more revealing clothes, and her phone became a fortress. Passwords were changed, and any time I reached for it, she'd become immediately defensive. One evening, while cleaning up after dinner, I stumbled across Emily's phone lying face up on the counter. I noticed a text notification pop up. "Can't wait to see you again tonight." My heart sank. I'd seen that name before. Kyle. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but that gut feeling told me something was wrong. I waited for her to come home that night, pacing like a caged animal, the words "I love you" frozen in my throat. When Emily finally walked in, her hair damp from the shower and a faint floral scent trailing behind her, I confronted her. "Emily, we need to talk." She looked at me, wide-eyed and then defensive, her posture shifting, arms crossing as if she were shielding herself from my words. I told her I came across the text and needed an explanation. Her reaction was a mixture of disbelief and anger. "Jake, you're overreacting. It's just yoga. He's helping me heal," she said, her voice laced with that irritating condescension she always reserved for moments like these. But I could see her eyes darting, a hint of guilt flickering across her face, and that was when I knew. Even as she spoke, spinning her web of excuses, I could see through the cracks. She claimed that Kyle was just a mentor, someone guiding her through a tough time. I pressed further and she stumbled over her words, trying to convince me that my suspicions were unfounded. But deep down, I could feel the betrayal slicing through me like 1,000 knives. Every word she spoke felt like an attempt to gaslight me into believing I was the problem. My heart raced, anger boiling beneath the surface. I had trusted her completely, and now here I was, watching her try to wriggle out of something that was increasingly clear. The emotional impact hit me full force. I felt a whirlwind of anger, sadness, and disbelief. How could she do this? How could the woman I loved betray me so casually? There was a moment where everything spiraled and I felt completely lost. I needed to process what was happening. My world was crumbling around me, and I had no idea how to put the pieces back together. As I sat there, I knew I had a decision to make. Would I fight for my marriage or let this betrayal define the end of it? The next steps loomed before me like a fog, and I needed clarity in a world that had suddenly become so murky. I realized my journey was just beginning, and I had to face the truth, no matter how painful it might be. After that confrontation, I felt like I was in a waking nightmare. Emily, with her defensive posturing and hollow excuses, had turned into a stranger right before my eyes. The warmth I once felt when I looked at her was now replaced with a chilling dread. I spent the night tossing and turning, my mind racing with thoughts of betrayal and disbelief. Every moment from our past replayed in my head, and I scrutinized each memory, searching for signs that I had missed. By morning, I was exhausted, both physically and emotionally. I decided to take a day off work, needing an escape from the daily grind to process what was happening to my life. The stillness of the house pressed down on me as I sat in my office, looking out the window, lost in thought. I felt a storm brewing inside me, a blend of anger and hurt that I didn't know how to channel. As the hours ticked away, I made a decision. I had to find out the truth. I needed concrete evidence of what was happening between Emily and Kyle. I wasn't going to let her dismiss my feelings any longer. I had to be certain before I could confront her again. I started by tracking her movements. It wasn't long before I noticed a pattern. Emily would leave for yoga classes several times a week, and whenever she did, she seemed to transform into someone else, more vibrant, more alive. But there was a darkness behind that vibrancy. I decided to do a little digging. One night, after she left for an evening class I took, a trip to the yoga studio she attended. It was a quaint little place, filled with calming scents and soft music. I waited outside, my heart racing as I scanned the room for any sign of her. After an hour of waiting, the class ended and I watched as she emerged, laughing and chatting with a group of women. But when my eyes locked onto Kyle standing just beside her, I felt a rush of nausea. He was charming and charismatic, his presence dominating the group. Emily's laughter rang out, and I watched as she leaned closer to him, their chemistry palpable. It was a sight that ignited a fire of rage inside me. I knew in that moment she was lying to me. I turned on my heels and left, gripping the steering wheel as I drove home, my mind racing with betrayal and pain. Days turned into a blur of anxiety and sleepless nights. I couldn't look at Emily without feeling the weight of her deception. My heart was heavy, and I felt like I was carrying the burden of our shattered trust all on my own. When she came home each night after yoga, I could feel energy shift as she walked through the door. She was always so happy, so carefree, while I felt like I was drowning in sorrow. Finally, I decided to take action. I needed something more substantial than texts or circumstantial evidence. I began to gather information, devising a plan to uncover the full extent of her affair. I created a fake social media account, posing as a prospective student interested in Kyle's classes. It was a risky move, but I felt like I had no other choice. I wanted to see the truth with my own eyes, and if it meant stepping into the murky waters of deceit, so be it. Within days, I had it all lined up. I approached Kyle's yoga studio and signed up for a class under my fake name. I told myself I was doing this for clarity, to understand what Emily saw in him, and to expose the truth of their relationship. As the class approached, my heart raced with anticipation and dread. I was about to enter a world I never wanted to be a part of. The day arrived, and as I walked into the studio, the familiar calming sense washed over me, but this time it felt suffocating. I saw Emily's face flash through my mind, and the anger that had been brewing inside me ignited once again. I took a position near the back of the room, my eyes scanning for Kyle as the lights dimmed. When he entered, the energy shifted. He was charismatic, moving with a confidence that felt magnetic. I watched as he led the class, his voice soothing and persuasive. But beneath that exterior, I felt a growing sense of revulsion. I could see the way he interacted with the women in the class, his charm laced with a hint of something more sinister. It was as if he had them wrapped around his finger, and I felt an overwhelming urge to break that spell. The class was a mix of mindfulness and intense physical activity, but I found it hard to focus. I watched him closely, analyzing his interactions with the students, waiting to see if Emily would show up. And then she did. I almost choked on my breath when I spotted her stepping through the door, a radiant smile on her face as if she had just entered a sanctuary. I felt a rush of emotions, anger, sadness, and a deep sense of betrayal. I watched as she settled onto her mat, her eyes sparkling whenever she caught Kyle's gaze. It felt like a dagger to my heart. There it was, the proof I had been searching for, right in front of me. As the class progressed, I felt my blood boiling. The way she looked at him, the way she laughed, it was all too much to bear. I knew I had to confront her again, but this time I was armed with the knowledge of her infidelity. I couldn't let her spin tales of innocence anymore. As the class wound down, I slipped out of the studio, my mind racing with what I had seen. I knew the next confrontation had to be different. It had to be decisive. I was done playing games. I was ready to expose the truth and reclaim my life. The emotional toll was heavy, but I was finally ready to take action, ready to fight back against the betrayal that had turned my world upside down. The drive home felt like a blur, my mind racing with images of Emily and Kyle. I could hardly process the reality of what I'd witnessed. The way she looked at him, the laughter they shared, every moment replayed in my head like a sickening loop. The rage I felt fueled my determination. I was done being passive in my own life. I was going to confront Emily with the truth. Once I got home, I paced around the living room, the silence suffocating. I could still smell her floral perfume lingering in the air, and it made my skin crawl. I needed to gather my thoughts to prepare myself for what was about to happen. I took deep breaths, trying to calm my racing heart. I couldn't crumble, I needed to be strong. When Emily eventually walked through the door, I was ready for her. She wore that radiant smile, the one that had always made my heart flutter, but now it felt like a mask hiding her lies. As she entered, I made my presence known, standing in the kitchen where I could see her as she stepped in. "Hey, Jake," she chirped, her voice bright, but it faded when she caught the look on my face. "What's wrong?" "Emily, we need to talk," I said, my voice steady but firm. She looked taken aback, her smile faltering as she sensed the gravity of the situation. "Can it wait? I'm tired from yoga," she replied, trying to deflect. "No, it can't wait. I know what's going on between you and Kyle," I blurted out, the words pouring out like venom. Her face went pale, the color draining as she processed my words. "What are you talking about?" she stammered, her voice shaking slightly. "I went to that yoga class." "I saw you," I said, my heart pounding in my chest. "You can't keep lying to me, Emily. I know the truth. I saw how you looked at him. I saw how he looked at you." In that moment, I watched her mask crumble. The defiance, the facade, everything she had built around her lies was coming crashing down. "Jake, please, you don't understand." She started, but I cut her off. "No, you don't get to twist this around. You've been cheating on me, and I deserve to know why." I could feel my voice rising, the anger bubbling to the surface as I took a step closer to her. "What did he offer you that I could?" Emily's eyes filled with tears, but I wasn't about to let her off the hook. "This isn't about my shortcomings, this is about your betrayal. You chose him over me." She opened her mouth, searching for words that wouldn't come. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she finally managed, her voice cracking. "I thought it was just yoga, I thought I could handle it. He helped me in ways I didn't think were possible emotionally." "Emotionally?" I echoed, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Is that what you call it? Because it sounds like you were looking for something more. Was it worth it?" "I don't know," she shouted, frustration spilling over. "It was never supposed to go this far. I was confused. I thought I was finding myself. I didn't want to hurt you." "But you did," I shot back, feeling the weight of her words hanging heavy in the air. "You hurt me in a way I didn't think was possible. You violated the trust we built together." "And for what? A thrill, a fantasy." She collapsed onto the couch, burying her face in her hands, sobs racking her body. "I'm so sorry, Jake. I never wanted to hurt you. I was caught up in everything, and I lost myself." Seeing her like that should have elicited some sympathy, but all I felt was a pit of betrayal gnawing at my insides. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "Do you even understand the impact of what you've done? This isn't just a mistake. This is a deliberate choice you made." "I know," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I know, and I hate myself for it." There was a moment of silence as we both sat in the aftermath of our confrontation, the air thick with tension. I could feel my heart breaking, torn between the love I had for her and the bitterness of her betrayal. I took a step back, feeling a mixture of sadness and anger. "I don't know if I can forgive you for this, Em. Trust is everything in a relationship, and you've shattered mine into a million pieces." She looked up at me, desperation in her eyes. "Please, Jake, I'll do whatever it takes to make it right. I love you. I want to fix this." I shook my head, the weight of her words sinking in. Love wasn't enough anymore. I needed time to think, to process everything she had done. "I need space. I can't do this right now." The tears streaming down her face were heart-wrenching, but I had to stand my ground. I didn't want pity. I wanted honesty, accountability. "Jake, please," she pleaded, her voice breaking. "I'll change. I'll cut ties with him. I just need a chance to show you I can be better." "Maybe it's too late for that," I said, my voice heavy with emotion. "You've made your choice, and now I must make mine." I felt the weight of the decision hanging over me. I needed to figure out what I wanted, how to move forward from this heart-wrenching betrayal. As I walked away, leaving Emily alone in the living room, I didn't look back. I needed to gather my thoughts and figure out what the future held for me. I wanted to reclaim my life, and I knew that it would take more than just words to heal the wounds she had inflicted. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was determined to find my footing again, even if it meant standing alone for a while. In the days that followed, the weight of my decision hung over me like a thick fog. I took time off work, seeking refuge in my solitude. Emily and I fell into a strange rhythm. She tiptoed around the house, trying her best to show remorse, but every apology felt hollow. Each time I caught her gaze, I was reminded of the betrayal, and the anger bubbled back to the surface. I needed to think, to process what had happened and what I wanted moving forward. I reached out to my closest friends, confiding in them about the affair. They listened, offering their support, but I could see the disappointment mirrored in their eyes. They knew Emily and they knew me. How could she betray my trust? How could I let this happen? One evening, I decided to go out for a drink with a friend. As I sat at the bar, nursing my drink, I felt the sharp pang of loss. The atmosphere around me felt foreign and uncomfortable. The laughter and chatter of people around me were a stark contrast to the silence I had been living in. It was strange to be out, to be enjoying something as simple as a drink, while my life was in shambles. As I sat there, I realized I had to make a choice. I couldn't live in this limbo forever. I was tired of feeling like a victim. I could either wallow in self-pity or channel my hurt into something constructive. I opted for the latter. I decided to focus on myself, on what I wanted, irrespective of Emily's actions. When I returned home that night, I found Emily still awake, sitting on the couch with a somber expression. She looked up as I entered, her eyes filled with hope and fear. "Jake, can we talk?" she asked, her voice trembling. I hesitated. "What is there to say?" "I just want you to know that I'm committed to making things right," she said, her voice earnest. "I've already cut ties with Kyle. I haven't spoken to him since our last class. I'll do whatever it takes to show you that I can be the wife you deserve." I studied her face, searching for sincerity, but all I saw was desperation. "Emily, it's not that simple. You can't just erase what you did. You had the chance to choose me and you chose him. You walked away from our marriage for a thrill." "I know," she said, tears brimming in her eyes. "I can't take it back, but I want to work on this. I want us to heal together." Healing. The word felt foreign to me. The idea of mending what was broken seemed like a daunting task. But I wanted to believe that change was possible. I took a deep breath, trying to gather my thoughts. "What does healing look like to you?" I asked, wanting to understand her perspective. "I want us to go to couples therapy," she said quickly. "I think it would help us talk through everything and find a way back to each other. I'll commit to it, Jake. I'll do the work, and I'll be honest with you from now on." Couples therapy. The thought had crossed my mind, but it felt both enticing and terrifying. Part of me wanted to cling to the hope that we could restore what had been lost, while another part screamed at me to take my dignity and walk away. "I don't know, Emily. Can we even come back from this?" She reached for my hand, her grip tight as she searched my eyes. "You're angry, and you have every right to be. But I love you, Jake. I want to fight for us. Please, let's give it a chance." I felt torn. The love I had for her was still there, buried beneath layers of anger and betrayal. I remembered the happy times we had shared, the dreams we had built together. But could I really trust her again? Ultimately, could I forgive her? "I'll think about it," I finally said, pulling my hand away gently. "But it's going to take time. I need to process all of this." She nodded, wiping tears from her eyes. "I understand. I'll give you space. Just know that I'm here, and I'll do anything to prove myself." As I retreated to my side of the house, I was left with a heavy heart. The idea of therapy lingered in my mind, a flicker of possibility amid the darkness. I knew I needed to confront my feelings, to work through the pain of her betrayal. But could I truly open myself up to her again? The next few days were a whirlwind of emotions. I spent hours researching couples therapy, reading articles about healing after infidelity. I sought advice online, exploring the stories of others who had faced similar situations. The experiences varied. Some couples emerged stronger, while others crumbled under the weight of betrayal. As I read through these stories, I couldn't help but feel a sense of solidarity with those who had shared their pain. I realized I wasn't alone in this. Others had walked this path, and they had survived. I began to see therapy as a tool for understanding not only Emily's actions, but also my own. What had led us here? What were the patterns we had unknowingly fallen into? After a week of soul-searching, I finally approached Emily one evening. "I've been thinking about what you said. Maybe we should try couples therapy," I said, my voice steadier than before. Her eyes lit up with surprise. "Really?" "Yeah, but I want you to know that this isn't a magic fix. It's going to be hard and it'll take time. Trust isn't built overnight," I warned her, needing her to grasp the weight of what lay ahead. "I know," she replied, her voice sincere. "I'm ready, Jake. I'll do the work and I'll be honest every step of the way." That evening, we made arrangements to see a therapist. It felt like a step forward, but I was still riding a wave of uncertainty. I wanted to believe that we could heal, but I knew that it would take more than just therapy to mend what had been broken. The journey ahead would be challenging, and I was bracing myself for the ups and downs that lay in wait. But one thing was certain. I was no longer going to be the passive participant in my own life. I was ready to reclaim my voice and my worth. The first session of couples therapy loomed ahead, and nerves twisted in my stomach. I arrived at the therapist's office early, sitting in the waiting room, my mind racing with anxiety. What would we even say? Would we be able to communicate effectively, or would it turned into another confrontation filled with anger and blame? Emily arrived moments later, looking nervous yet hopeful. She offered me a tentative smile, and I returned it half-heartedly, still feeling the weight of everything that had happened. When our therapist, Dr. Simmons, called us into her office, I followed Emily inside, unsure of what to expect. The room was warm and inviting, filled with soft colors and comfortable furniture. A coffee table held a stack of books about relationships, and the air was infused with an earthy scent that felt calming. Dr. Simmons introduced herself with a gentle smile, making us both feel a little more at ease. "Thank you for being here today," she said, her voice soothing. "Couples therapy can be a powerful tool for healing. Let's start by discussing what brought you both here." I felt the tension in the air as Emily and I exchanged hesitant glances. Finally, she spoke up. "I've been unfaithful to Jake, and it has caused a lot of hurt and mistrust in our relationship. I want to work on it, but I know it's going to take time and effort." Dr. Simmons nodded, encouraging Emily to elaborate. "Jake, how do you feel about what Emily just shared?" I took a deep breath, feeling a mix of emotions churning inside me. I'm still processing everything. It's hard for me to trust her after what happened. I never thought I'd find myself in this situation, and it's painful. I want to move forward, but I need to know that she's committed to the process. "Trust is the foundation of any relationship," Dr. Simmons said. "It's understandable that you're feeling distrustful and hurt, Jake. It's important to address these feelings openly." As the session progressed, I started to let down my guard bit by bit. Dr. Simmons guided the conversation skillfully, prompting both of us to share our thoughts and feelings. Emily expressed how she felt lost and confused, and how her relationship with Kyle had spiraled out of control. I listened, trying to understand her perspective, but the sting of betrayal still lingered. "Why did you turn to him?" I asked, feeling the need for answers. "Was I not enough for you? Did our relationship mean so little?" Emily's eyes filled with tears. "It wasn't about you not being enough. It was about me feeling inadequate and looking for validation elsewhere. I thought yoga was helping me, but it became a distraction from my own issues. I didn't handle my feelings properly." Dr. Simmons helped us unpack that, encouraging Emily to delve deeper into her emotions and past experiences. For the first time, I could see the vulnerability behind her facade. It was as if the layers of her defenses were peeling away, revealing the insecurities that had drawn her to Kyle in the first place. As the session continued, I began to share my own feelings, how her betrayal shattered my trust and left me questioning everything about our marriage. Dr. Simmons facilitated a dialogue that allowed us to express our hurt without spiraling into accusations. It felt cathartic, but there was still a long way to go. When the session ended, I felt both exhausted and a little hopeful. As we left the office, Emily reached for my hand, a gesture that felt foreign yet comforting. "Thank you for being open with me," she said softly. "I know this is difficult, but I want to get through this together." I nodded, wanting to believe in the possibility of healing. But I also knew that trust would take time to rebuild. As we drove home, the silence was filled with a mixture of contemplation and uncertainty. We had taken the first step, but the road ahead would be filled with challenges. In the weeks that followed, we continued attending therapy, and each session chipped away at the barriers we had built around ourselves. We learned to communicate more honestly, to express our needs and fears without fear of judgment. I discovered that Emily's infidelity stemmed from unresolved trauma and a deep-seated need for validation. It didn't excuse her actions, but it helped me to understand her better. Little by little, I began to see glimpses of the woman I had fallen in love with, buried beneath layers of hurt and confusion. As we shared our vulnerabilities, I realized that we were both navigating our own paths to healing. I was learning to confront my own pain and resentment, to acknowledge my feelings rather than bury them. Despite the progress we were making, I still experienced moments of doubt. There were times I'd catch a whiff of her perfume or see an old message, and the memories would flood back, leaving me feeling raw and exposed. I would have to remind myself that healing wasn't linear. It was a process that would take time and effort from both of us. One evening, after a particularly enlightening session, we sat in the living room together, sipping tea. The atmosphere felt lighter, almost peaceful. "I never thought we'd get here," Emily said, breaking the silence. "I didn't believe we could work through this." I looked at her, acknowledging the journey we had embarked on. Did I? But I'm starting to hope again. As I glanced at her, I saw the remorse in her eyes, but I also saw determination. I knew she was committed to changing, to showing me that she could be the partner I deserved. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a flicker of hope that maybe we could mend the pieces of our shattered relationship. But I also knew that as much as I wanted to move forward, the scars of betrayal would take time to heal. I had to be patient with her and with myself. As we continued our journey together, I realized that this was just the beginning. The road to recovery was long, but I was willing to walk it step by step. I was ready to reclaim my life and my marriage, even if that meant facing the pain head-on. As we both began to heal, I held onto the belief that love could be rebuilt, but it would require complete honesty and a willingness to confront the truth, no matter how painful it might be. As the weeks turned into months, Emily and I continued our journey through therapy. Each session felt like peeling back another layer of the pain that had wrapped around our marriage. We learned to communicate better, to express not only our fears and regrets but also our hopes for the future. It was uncomfortable at times, but it was necessary. One evening, as we sat together reflecting on our progress, Emily looked at me with a sincerity that felt genuine. "I want you to know that I've been doing a lot of thinking. I realize how deeply I hurt you, and I want to be the partner you deserve. I'm committed to this, Jake." I nodded, feeling a blend of emotions. "I appreciate that, Em. I know it's been hard for both of us. I'm still learning to trust you again, and that's something that will take time." She reached for my hand, and this time the gesture felt natural, as if we were beginning to redefine our intimacy. "I understand that. I want us to build something new, something stronger. I've done a lot of soul-searching about why I acted the way I did, and I'm determined not to repeat those mistakes." I was relieved to see the determination in her eyes. I wanted to believe her, but the journey was still daunting. The shadows of betrayal lingered, and I often found myself grappling with memories that threatened to undo our progress. But I also found solace in the moments we shared that felt genuine. Quiet evenings spent watching movies, cooking together, or just talking about our day. We began to reestablish the small rituals that had once brought us joy. We started taking walks in the evenings, discussing our dreams and fears, allowing ourselves to be vulnerable. While the laughter didn't come as easily as it once did, it began to return in small doses. One evening, as we sat under the stars on our porch, I turned to Emily, feeling a wave of gratitude wash over me. "I'm proud of how far we've come. I know it hasn't been easy, but I can see that you're really putting in the effort. I'm starting to feel like we might just make it." Her eyes sparkled as she smiled. "Thank you, Jake. That means a lot to me. I know I have a long way to go, but I want this to work. I want us to be happy again." As the months continued to unfold, we found comfort in our new routine. We began to explore new activities together, taking dance lessons, hiking, even trying out new cuisine. Each experience felt like a step toward healing, creating fresh memories that slowly began to overshadow the painful ones. Gradually, I started to let go of some of the resentment, learning to forge a new path forward. The wounds of betrayal were still there, but they no longer dominated my thoughts. I realized that healing wasn't about forgetting the past but learning to live with it in a way that didn't define our future. The day came when Emily suggested we revisit the yoga studio together. My heart raced at the thought, but I agreed. It felt like a significant step, one that might help us reclaim something that had been tainted. We walked into the studio hand in hand, and the familiar sense enveloped me. It felt surreal being there with her, but I was determined to face the memories head-on. As we settled onto our mats, I noticed Emily glancing at me, her expression vulnerable. "I know this place holds a lot of painful memories for you, but I hope we can build new ones together," she said softly. I nodded, appreciating her acknowledgement. "I think I'm ready to try." The class began, and as we moved through the poses, I focused on my breath, letting the tension that had built up over the months melt away. I found peace in the movement, realizing that I was no longer just going through the motions. I was finding a new rhythm, one that represented our commitment to healing. After class, we stepped outside and the sunlight felt warm on my skin. I looked at Emily, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of hope. "You know, I think we really are moving forward," I said, my voice filled with tentative optimism. She smiled, the sincerity in her eyes reflecting a shared understanding. "I believe that too. We've come so far, and I'm grateful for every step we've taken together." As we walked back to the car, hand in hand, I felt a sense of renewal. The journey ahead would still have its bumps, but I was ready to navigate it with Emily by my side. I had learned that relationships were not merely built on love, but on trust, honesty, and the willingness to confront the shadows of the past. In the end, I had emerged stronger from this experience. I learned to value my own worth and voice, recognizing that I deserved a love built on mutual respect and trust. And as I glanced at Emily, I held on to the hope that we could build a new foundation together, one that would withstand the tests of time. I knew that love could be messy, complicated, and painful, but it could also be a powerful force for healing and growth. I was ready to embrace the journey ahead, step by step, with a heart open to both the challenges and joys that lay before us.